Starting off at number 10 now, we have same faces. At the end of 2017, The Mirror posted an interesting theory about the original Toy Story movie. Have you guys ever noticed how similar the faces look in that movie? Now when I say that, you may think I mean the toys' faces, right? I mean, they're all basically plastic toys. In real life, plastic toys all kind of have that similar vacant expression, a bit dead behind the eyes. However, this story pointed out that the toys actually had quite different looking faces. It was the children that looked creepily similar in the original Toy Story movie. Early on in that movie, we see Andy playing with his toys. Later on, we see Andy's friends attending his birthday party, and they look very similar to Andy. Like, almost identical. They also look just like Andy's neighbor Sid, the boy who likes to torture toys. What's going on here? Why does every kid in this movie have the same face? Some people say this is just a product of animation at the time. Although Pixar's animation still holds up almost 25 years on, they were still limited by what they could do. Perhaps that is the reason. Others say that this isn't true, because they managed to make the toys look all so unique. Some say that the humans in the movie are actually the toys, and that what we think of the toys are really the living people, if you can get your head around that. That would also explain why they're able to move and talk, but it also produces a whole bunch of other questions. Next up at number 9 now, we have Andy's father. Fans of Toy Story will notice the absence of Andy's father throughout the Toy Story movies. Some people say that his parents just weren't together, or maybe they split up, but others think that Andy's father died. One Reddit user suggested that Woody was the last toy that Andy ever received from his father before he died. Andy's mother noticed how much Woody helped Andy through the grieving process, and so she kept buying him more and more toys to help him deal with the pain. This is why Andy's toys remained in his toy box even when he was 18 years old. They weren't just toys to him, they were his last connection to his father. Now despite all of this, Andy decided to give them away when he went to college, and we see how much it really hurts him to do that. If this theory is true, then the toys in Toy Story helped fill a very dark place in Andy. They were much more to Andy than just childhood toys. Moving on to number 8 now, we have the Immortals. This is a very weird theory that came from Reddit and was written by Nameless88. He said he thinks the toys in Toy Story are immortal. They cannot die. This doesn't mean they can't be destroyed, it just means they can't die of old age, so to speak. This means they will outlive every owner they ever have. The toys' time with Andy will just repeat all over again when he gets old and dies. This is quite disconcerting when you think about the tortured toys in the first movie that Sid made that are very much still alive, albeit horribly mangled. Those toys are technically still alive. Perhaps they even feel the same pain as we do, and it will never ever end unless they're incinerated. Taking them apart won't kill them. We once saw Mr. Potato Head able to feel and use his body parts even though they weren't anywhere near him. This means that as long as any part of a toy lives, they will live on forever. Another creepy thought is that if humans one day go extinct, the toys may not. They may just live on forever, kind of like WALL-E, which is another well-known Pixar movie. The toys will live on for thousands, millions, or perhaps even billions of years, unable to end their lives unless through fiery suicide. What a horrible, horrible thought. Alright, next up at number 7 now, we have Sid's family. Many people see Sid as a villainous little kid who deserves no sympathy for creating the mutant toys. Well, there is a theory that Sid is actually the product of a neglectful family. One piece of evidence for this is the rocket that was mailed to him at the house. In the 90s, ordering things online weren't as simple as they are these days. Sid must have had one of his parents order it for him, and they must not have cared that it was a life-endangering rocket that could have easily hurt their small child. Also, some people point to that one shot of the dad apparently passed out on the couch surrounded by cola cans. Now they say the cans only say cola on them because Pixar didn't want to show what the cans really were. They were beer cans. Of course, having a few beers and falling asleep on the couch isn't a bad thing by any means. I've done that a fair few times. But people who push this theory say that it could be a sign of the father's alcoholism and of Sid's neglect. Moving on to number 6 now, we have the toy corpses. This is a pretty dark theory that contradicts the immortal theory we heard before. In July 2018, Baron Stigman tweeted out that his daughter had ruined Toy Story for him forever. Apparently, she said that if one of the toys died, then Andy wouldn't know and he'd keep on playing with its corpse. Before long, this tweet blew up with people sharing sharing their shock and horror at this theory. One user said this thought had scarred them for life. Another thanked them for ruining Toy Story as well. What about you guys? Is that thought gonna just creep you out every time you watch Toy Story? Maybe it's done that to me already. Coming at number 5 now, guys, we have the Illuminati. This is perhaps one of the most bizarre theories I've heard so far in anything, actually. I can't even quite wrap my head around it, but here I go. It was written on the Brainbender site by David B. He says that the plot of Toy Story 3 is a clever predictive programming of what the Illuminati would do if they were in power. They say that, as Alex Jones predicts, if nuclear bombs ever went off in American cities, the Illuminati would use it as an excuse to start the North American Union, which is meant to be the daycare from Toy Story 3. At first, this union, like the daycare, will seem like a good thing, but eventually it will lead to a nightmare scenario. If you aren't sold on this theory yet, and trust me, neither am I, they provide one last piece of evidence. Lotso the bear made a comment in the movie about constructing a pyramid with himself at the top, just like the Illuminati pyramid.
It's Lotso! He's made us into a pyramid, and he put himself on top!
Anyone concur with Ken?
If you want to read this full story, then please go and check it out. Perhaps you can make some more sense out of it than me. Moving on to number 4 now, we have special training. This theory comes from Reddit user Octogenarian Sandwich. Great name. He made a post where he addresses the issue about Buzz pretending to be a toy. So in the first Toy Story movie, you'll remember that Buzz thinks he is an actual space ranger. He refuses to acknowledge that he is a toy. It takes a long time before Woody and the others can convince him. Okay, that's fine, but why does Buzz still freeze up whenever humans come into the room? That's something only toys do. If he thinks he's an actual space ranger, then he should just keep acting normally. Why is he freezing up like that? Well, this theory states that he was actually trained to do that because he's a unique toy. Perhaps every single Buzz Lightyear is a specially trained spy. Stay with me here. In order to fit in, Buzz has to do what every spy does, fit in with the locals, even if this means pretending to freeze in position when a human enters the room. If this is true, then who programmed all the Buzz Lightyears, and where does this theory even end? Moving on to number 3 now, we have Sid the Savior. So this is about the second time now where I'm about to make you sympathize with Sid. This is the theory. Sid knows that toys are alive. He learned this after they attacked him on Woody's command in the first movie when Woody was trying to save Buzz. Woody did that because he also knew it was the only way to save the mutant toys from being mashed together with parts that weren't their own by Sid. However, Sid's new knowledge has led him to become a garbage man by the time we get to Toy Story 3 so that he can actually save the toys. He does this to make sure all the toys that get thrown out aren't chucked into the incinerator or just thrown onto a dump. People say that he takes them back to his home and he fixes them up. They might still be sort of twisted mutants, but at least they're alive. That's a nice thing, I guess. Moving on to number 2 now, we have Evil Woody. This is a theory posted by Reddit user Itchy Rabbit. They suggested that Woody is not so different from Lotso the evil bear in Toy Story 3. The only real difference is that Woody had a kid. Andy. This is the only thing that saved him from being as evil as Lotso. If Andy had bought a new Woody toy in the first movie, then Woody would have turned out just like Lotso, hurt, bitter, angry, and wanting revenge on the world. Both Woody and Lotso are leaders and they go through a lot to try and get back to their respective kids. For those people who see Woody as a perfect being, Itchy Rabbit points to Woody's darker side in the first movie when he started to feel like he was being replaced by Buzz Lightyear. Luckily, everything turned out alright there, but perhaps in a parallel universe there may be a Toy Story where Woody is the evil toy that needs to be overthrown. And finally at number 1 now we have the Holocaust. Now this is at the number 1 spot for a reason. It's not my theory. My job in this video is to just present theories that other people come up with, and this is definitely the darkest one that I've seen so far. It came from John Hoffman of UGO, who said that the toys being abandoned by Andy for college is similar to Jewish people being abandoned by countries as the Third Reich began to spread across Europe before World War II. Woody gathers the toys to try and form a plan. They refuse to be abandoned and give up. Buzz Lightyear steps forward and suggests they hide in an attic. For Hoffman, this drew parallels to many Jewish people who tried to hide in attics from the Nazis, most famously Anne Frank and her family. Perhaps the darkest comparison is that they are being taken to Sunnyside Daycare, which is meant to be a supposed concentration camp, where they find themselves trapped among others in the same situation as them. I won't go into any more details there. It's a disturbing comparison to say the least, perhaps even an unnecessary one, but it's one that exists online, and so there you go. I laid it out for you today.
Number 10. Riley was about to be bipolar. In this Disney Pixar classic, we have Riley, who's the host of 5 different primary emotions that make up who she is: joy, sadness, fear, disgust, and anger. Later in the movie, we see that everyone has these emotions, but certain types take center stage for people, giving them core memories associated with these emotions, and this helps build their personality. Now, with the main character of the movie, Riley, we see that she has 2 primary emotions which take hold of most of her decisions: joy and sadness. By the end of the movie, this is resolved and she is balanced out. But what if the movie ended in a different way? What if at the end of the movie, Riley didn't get off that bus she was on while she was running away from home? What if she ended up running away from home and she was on the streets? This would lead to her probably having a mental breakdown, and poor little sweet Riley would be struggling with her mental health for the rest of her life. That would have been a little bit of a dark twist for Pixar, but hey, they did kill Marlin's wife at the beginning of Finding Nemo. Number 9. Bing Bong is a dead sibling. Halfway through this flick, we come across Bing Bong, who's the name of Riley's almost forgotten imaginary friend that is also the name of my buddy's bong when we used to be roommates. We used to be like, hey man, pass me the Bing Bong dude, I'm about to get binged. Throughout some flashbacks, we see Bing Bong playing with Riley in all sorts of ways, the two of them going on adventures. While some people think that the representation of Bing Bong in Riley's brain is just her covering up the death of a brother or sister. The loss of her sibling could have been too much for her little brain to handle, and so she made up a character to replace him with. This way she could deal with the trauma. This could be why the whole family is moving at the beginning of the movie. Living in the home where they were raising a kid that passed away may have been too much for the family. Or maybe a little girl who grew up in Minnesota really does have an imaginary friend who has the accent of an erotic Jewish man from New York. Who knows? Number 8. The dump is a metaphor for Alzheimer's. Inside Out pretty much breaks down emotions into working in a factory and an office. The dump is where your memories go when they're not needed anymore, and that's what happens when you get Alzheimer's. Well, if this was the Inside Out world, most of those things would go flying into the dump. I'm pretty sure that's the same thing that happens when you take a big hit in football. I wonder what the Inside Out world looks like for a football player with CTE. I bet all his core memories is just loud crashing noises and the urge to crush someone. So the dump could represent not just what happens to your memories as they fade, but it could also represent what happens to your brain as it ages. Number 7. Dad's main emotion is anger. Eventually we get to look into the minds of some of the other characters in the movie, mainly Riley's mom and dad. Their emotions are so clean and put together, and they have everything where it needs to be. I know some people with kids, and if you took a look inside their heads, it would look nothing like that. It would be all sleep deprivation and a never-ending craving for martinis. But when we get to look inside Riley's father's head, it seems like anger is at center stage. Why is this so? Could it be because he hates his life? During the movie, we see him constantly struggling over his job. Or maybe he grew up an angry kid in a broken home. Either way, I don't like a guy with a cop mustache who mainly runs on anger. Number 6. Mom's main emotion is sadness. Sticking with the theme of what's going on inside the heads of Riley's parents, we see that Mom's brain seems to run mainly on sadness. That is dark. We also see that one of her fondest memories is a time when she almost ran off with a Brazilian helicopter pilot. I think it's safe to say that there's a huge serving of regret sitting in Riley's mom's life. Every day she's raising a little bundle of joy and holding a strong marriage together when she could be in the sun getting some strong, well, you guys can fill in the rest of the picture. Number 5. Monsters Inc. crossover. So how did Bing Bong, the king of bongs, Bing Bong, the loving imaginary friend, come into an existence? Well, it could have been that the imagination of a child is so strong that she conjured him up herself, or that Bing Bong is actually from the Monsters Inc. universe, and when Riley was a kid, he would visit her to make her laugh. I really like this theory because people have been trying to make bridges through the Pixar movies to make one giant universe. And if it's true, it means Bing Bong is actually alive and well out there somewhere. Only the memory of him died. So when you're watching this movie, you can feel a little bit warmer when that scene happens. Number 4. Different genders. If you were paying close enough attention to the layout of everyone's head in Inside Out, you might have seen a distinct difference. Well, first off, inside Riley's mom's head, we have a nice layout. Everything is cozy. While her dad's head looks more like a dimmer version of a NASA flight monitoring room. I think guys are just simpler. That's why we don't need as many things. Like, we don't need sheets on our bed to feel happy, and one towel is more than enough. But beyond that, you might have seen that all the emotion in Riley's mom's head are women, and all the emotions in Riley's dad's head are men. but in Riley's head they have different genders. This could be that Riley has not gone through puberty yet, so she hasn't settled into who she's going to be. All the things like sexuality and gender are still yet to be determined. That would be very ahead of its time for a Pixar movie. They don't usually tend to touch on topics that sensitive. Number 3. The brain planned everything. We really get the impression that Joy is running the show. I mean, all the other motions look up to her for advice, and she seems to be the big boss. But maybe not. Maybe it's Riley's brain running the show. Why did Joy and Sadness get sucked into long-term memory? Why does the control panel start to turn gray? This could be because it's really the brain doing everything. Joy trying to stop Riley from feeling any sadness was killing the brain. This is why the whole movie happened. All that insanity that seemed like accidents was actually the brain that had planned this to force Joy and Sadness to become better friends so Joy could see the benefit of Sadness. If the brain didn't do this, Riley would have been on her way to a mental breakdown. Number 2. Riley is adopted. It's theories like these that make me wonder if people just sit down and enjoy a movie, or if the whole movie they're sitting there with a pen and paper in hand taking notes. Like, dude, it's a Pixar movie. There are no hidden messages. Just pass me the bing bong and try and relax. Well, there are some good points to this one. First off, when we see Riley's parents first seeing her at the beginning of the movie, Riley's mom doesn't look like she just went through childbirth. You don't stand and hold your baby right after you ripped your vagina to your butthole. That's not how it works. You're gonna want to sit down after that. Also, both her parents have brown hair and brown eyes, while Riley is blonde with blue eyes. It really gives you something to think about. Number 1 on the list. Joy is the villain. And we're gonna wrap up this list by turning the movie onto its head. Through the whole movie, Joy is trying to control everything. She tells everyone how to act. She even shoves Sadness into a little circle. Also, she can be the supreme leader of Riley's mind. She's running the place like Fidel Castro. And even though Riley seems happy, if Joy had her way, Riley would be well on her way to be a person who can't feel anything other than joy. That means she could become a bloodthirsty murderer and still have a smile on her face. She also tries to tell people in other departments how to do their jobs. Like when she's in long-term memory, she tries to tell the little bean guys what memories to throw away. I think we can break it down that she's a control freak, and if she didn't end up sucked to the other side of the world, then she would have drove Riley insane.
Alright, let's do this. Coming in at number 10, we have the Lemon Party. So I don't know if you've ever watched our top 10 things you should never Google video, but basically on that list you would have found Lemon Party. If you don't know what a lemon party is, it involves naked old people and the dawn of the age of the internet. Either way, it seems that the animators behind Disney's Cars have been having a good old inappropriate lol. In one scene in Cars 2, it clearly shows the vehicle having a very literal lemon party, a nod to the horrible sexy former website. Ugh. Coming into number 9, we have Apple brainwashing. Many people have accused Disney's Cars of secret brainwashing. There are a couple of strands to the brainwashing theories out there, both of which I think are kind of ridiculous. In Cars 3, there is a Mac iCar with a prominent Apple logo over it, and it is the number 84, which is the year that Apple released their Mac. Many people think that this is a product placement, but in reality it's probably just a nod to Steve Jobs, who founded Apple and once owned Pixar. Some people are taking the 84 thing to be a reference to the surveillance state of 1984, a nod to the suspicion that iPhones are listening to us, which I think they actually are. Cars 3 is making young boys subservient to females, apparently, at number 8. I mean, to me this is absolute pish posh, but we needed to make a 10-point list, so here it goes. An article on the highly credible returnofthekings.com praises the first 2 movies for instilling a sense of the brotherhood, but it slams the 3rd movie because Lightning McQueen is trained by a young female car, who eventually ends up racing for him and winning. The article says that this showcases how, in the age of feminism, strong men are expected to step aside for females who haven't worked as hard to get where they are. Honestly, I really don't agree. I don't think that this was the message at all. The scariest thing for me is probably that people out there are worried about a victorious female car, like just cars. Coming in at number 7, we have Car Wars. It is heavily hinted at in Cars that there may have been car wars in the past. In the same way that humans have had world wars, there's an underlying suggestion that cars may have had done too. The clue lies in the character of Skipper, a plane who also appears in the movie Planes. Now, Skipper is an old Navy corsair, a warplane. If he's a warplane, then there must have been a war to fight in. He also mentions that he was shot down in a fight with Japanese planes. If there were car universe wars, then there must have also been a car universe Hitler equivalent. Thanks Tumblr for that theory. Thanks a bunch. Alright, moving on from Car Hitler to Car Jesus at number 6. People have really run wild with the whole car parallel universe thing. A lot of people have spotted the car in Cars that looks like the Pope-mobile. From that, they've deduced that in the Cars world there must have been car religions, which is probably how all of those early car wars got started. If there are car religions, does that mean there's a car Jesus? If so, like, hello, has anyone else just gone cross-eyed with this mind-boggling revelation? Car Jesus. Others say that the car Pope, which contains a car within a car, is actually a driving monument to the car the actual last surviving Pope died in. This opens up a whole new can of scary theory worms. Is the movie Cars trying to tell us that the Pope is under threat when he rides in a motorcade? Honestly, I'm just exhausted thinking about some of these theories. Coming into number 5, there is no original thought in Cars. Is the world of Cars a parallel universe, or did creativity and original thought die out with the humans? Wait, what? The humans are dead? Yes, but we'll get to that later. In Cars, the automobiles have similar lives to modern Westerners, but instead of making their own original creative content, they copy old human entertainment and translate it into mechanism entertainment. For example, did you see what's playing at the Carsverse movie theater? Toy Car Story. Right, they could watch that, or they could watch Incredimobiles. Whoever these cars are and however they have come about, they aren't very creative and original. Isn't a world of recycled content, but instead of people, just cars, kind of weird and terrifying? Also, in movies like The Fast and the Furious, if humans are cars in other movies, then what are actual cars? Honestly, there's so much to think about. Coming into number 4, there are no families in Cars. Have you guys ever noticed how there are no families in the movie Cars? Well, it hasn't been lost on some people. I assume the lack of family units is to allow Disney further space to not explain how cars are created, because car sex is really just too much to think about. I'm guessing the car stork delivers the car babies. There are very small references to traces of family, but we never actually see a family unit. Is this just further evidence that Disney hates families? I think it might be, or something. Okay, so in the last few points we address a major plot gap for Cars, which is the lack of humans. These next theories are basically possible explanations for their absence, all of which are pretty worrying. Also, at this point, I want to be honest with you, I've accidentally scripted 11 points. It does happen more often than you think, but I'm just gonna go with it. So, welcome to 3A everyone. This is 3A, the apocalypse. A lot of people think that Cars is set millions of years after WALL-E, a movie in which we all know that humans have jettisoned the Earth after filling it with trash. Well, the story at the end of WALL-E is that humans return to Earth eager to restore it. The Cars theory goes that actually humans had no idea how to restore it. For example, how the captain in WALL-E said he's gonna grow a pizza plant, like, if only, but mate, good luck. Soon the humans die out and the robots create a superhuman race. Cars. Rightio then. Another scary theory is that there is no humans because the air is unbreathable. This is coming into 3B. 3B, ladies and gents. Happening all over again. This just makes sense, doesn't it? A whole entire world filled with a whole bunch of cars. Total internal combustion creates exhaust, which creates pollution. If the population of Cars Earth is anything like human Earth, billions of cars would create billions of fumes, which may be how all of the humans died. One step into the Cars world and it would be curtains for soft human lungs. It's not the cough that carried her off, it's the coffin that carried her off in. I remember my grandma saying that to me. Coming into number 2, the cars killed the people. Oh no. There are a number of theories circulating out there that the cars are AI vehicles created by robots in order to destroy humans, and like, at this point, maybe. The theory goes that the cars are sentient self-driving vehicles and they had enough of human dominance, especially from those who were trying to cut back on carbon emissions. That just ain't cricket if you're a car. One theory suggests that cars rebelled against the humans and ran them all over in a bloody massacre and then burned the bodies with gasoline. Not feeling so great about cars right now. Finally, this is one of the most disturbing Cars theories of all time. People are in the cars. Some people say that the Cars universe exists independent of humans, like a parallel universe, if you will, wherein humans never actually existed, but they're wrong. How can you tell? Well, the cars have door handles and wing mirrors. Now these would be pretty superfluous in a world without humans, and evolution would have sorted that right out. So humans must have existed at some point in the Cars universe, but where are they now? Well, get this. This is one wild theory. It says that actually the humans are somehow in the cars. This theory is called the homunculus theory, and it says that humans are lab grown in amniotic vats and are then embedded within an automotive exoskeleton. Whew. A quote from the theory on jalpanic.com reads, "Eventually automated robotic factories to produce cars were built and human babies were produced in amniotic vats and then directly embedded within a automotive skeleton body." Okay, do you want to see what this may look like via the medium of a horrifying sketch? Of course you do. Note the liquid waste removal tube. I'm not about it. I'm absolutely not about it.